Afternoon, everyone. I am going to convene this meeting of the Government Administration and Elections Committee so that we can recess it for roughly 15 minutes, at which hopefully time we can reconvene and continue with the business of the committee. Thank you.
because I put paper everywhere. Okay. Wait, how the hell did this get unplugged? Oh, because I. Jesus Christ. Oh.
Anything for the rankings? All right, we will move to Roman numeral number 3. The first item on Roman numeral number 3. Number 3 is item number 1, Senate Bill 1135, an act establishing an exemption from disclosure for certain higher education records pertaining to research or teaching under the Freedom of Information Act. This will be a JFS to the floor of LCO number 6345. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Haddad. This bill would exempt certain teaching and research related records from the State Freedom of Information Act. We heard a number of witnesses testifying to attempts to either access proprietary information being developed through research, through our university system, and or attempts to harass individual academics for their research and trying to access their records. And this bill would address that issue. Are there remarks from the committee? Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I heard the testimony also, and I'm certainly sympathetic to those folks and the burden placed upon them. Although I think, generally speaking, I am averse to limiting or exempting more documentation from FOIA. And after doing a little bit of research, I'm confident that the current law is prudent and satisfactory, and that, individual notes and that sort of thing are still protected under current law. And I believe this would simply make the number of exempted documents too broad. So I will be a no today, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there further comment from the committee? Seeing none, I will just add that this record exempts any financial records related to the institution. It does not exempt them from FOIA. It exempts them from the exemption, so they will be subject to FOIA. Seeing no further comments from the committee, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senate Bill 1153, LCO 6345, JFS to the floor. Flexer.
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal.
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slap. Morin-Bello.
Morin-Bello votes yes.
Sampson.
Sampson is no.
Maestro Francesco.
Yes.
Burger Gervalo.
Burger Gervalo, yes.
Bronco.
No.
Carpino. Haddad.
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa.
Hoxa votes no.
Khanna.
Khanna votes yes.
Labriola. Marks.
Senator Marks votes yes.
McCarthy Vehi. McCrory. Parker. Rosario. Santiago.
Santiago votes yes.
All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. First of all, I'll just say that the votes will be held open for all these bills until at least the end of the meeting, and we will announce time at the end of the meeting, or at least sometime before. And I believe we have a change in vote on the last roll call.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, can you please change my vote to a no? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we move to item number 2, Senate Bill number 1155, an act implementing recommendations of the Freedom of Information Commission. I will entertain, this is a JFS to the floor, LCO 6284. I will entertain a motion.
So moved, but 6-2. Yeah. So moved.
Moved by Senator Flexer, second by Representative Morin-Bello. This bill would implement the recommendations of the Freedom of Information Commission, among others, limiting the applicability of the definition of government function, conforming to law certain trainings provided by the FOIC, and making several changes to allow for a reasonable fee to be charged for copying with a phone. These are all put forward to us by the FOIC. Are there further remarks from the committee? Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to confirm that the last item that you mentioned, this bill does not actually change the fee at all. That is existing law. This simply says that the ability to scan documents would include not just a purpose-built handheld scanner device, but also a cell phone or camera that's capable of doing that. I don't think it changes the fee amount. And I am in support of this legislation. And in fact, I offer this up for the consent calendar if you are so inclined, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you to Senator Sampson. He's actually correct. This has not changed any of the fee structure. It just explicitly allows a mobile telephone or other portable device to be used to photocopy records or take a scan of records. Are there any further remarks from the committee? Seeing none, Senator Sampson has a motion. Yes. So Senator Sampson has moved to add this item to the consent calendar. Is there any objection? Without objection, this item will be added to the consent calendar. Moving to item number 3, Senate Bill 1157. This is an act concerning revisions to the Freedom of Information Act concerning employees of public agencies. This is a JFS to the floor of LCO number 6285. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Khanna. This bill would exempt the home addresses of certain employees in the Department of Aging and Disability Services and Office of the Attorney General and Bureau of Rehabilitation Services and certain other mass requests. These employees all have jobs where their interaction with the public could be adversarial, and these departments have received threats against employees in these categories in the past. Is there further comment from the committee? Representative Massafrancesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the bill references a mass request of records. Can you kind of give me an idea what that means? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. So a mass request of records would be one that concerns 50 or more employees. And it would be a request to inspect those employees, or inspect or copy the records of those employees that are contained in those employees' personnel, medical, or similar files.
Thank you for that clarification. So when you talk a little bit about medical records, aren't those exempt anyway because those are personal records that should not be, they're not FOIable anyway. Is that correct?
There are certain restrictions that do apply to those records, but this legislation would mandate that if a public agency receives such a mass request, that it make a reasonable attempt to notify the employees that the request pertains to and their collective bargaining representatives before they disclose those records.
Understood. Thank you. We've seen many times since I've been on this committee, every year the hidden of the residential addresses or that are not FOIable are trying. It's just another area of exemption that we see very often in this committee when it comes to freedom of information. It almost seems like at some point every state employee is going to be exempt and their addresses will not be FOIable. So I am not going to support this bill today, Mr. Chairman, and I would urge my colleagues to vote against it. Thank you.
So further comment from the committee? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senate Bill 1157, LCO 6285, Jeffers to the floor. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slat. Bello,
Bello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson is no.
Master Francesco,
Master Francesco votes no.
Burger Girbalo,
Burger Girbalo votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes no.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes no.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola, Marks,
Senator Marks votes yes.
McCarthy Vehi, Representative McCarthy Vehi, McCrory, Parker, Rosario, Santiago,
Santiago votes yes.
all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next up, we have Senate Bill 1190, an act concerning regional election advisors and a task force on election administration in municipalities. This is the JFS to the floor of LCO 6277. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Morin-Bello. I will ask Senator Flexer to give us a description of the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The bill before us is an update to an existing law concerning regional election monitors. The bill before us changes what is currently a requirement that councils of governments have regional election monitors, and instead creates a program to incentivize councils of governments to have regional election monitors, and changes the title from monitor to advisor. Currently, only 2 councils of governments in our state are abiding by the requirement and have regional election positions. This bill again would incentivize councils of governments to do that. These regional election monitors would be allowed to provide assistance to towns both within the jurisdiction of the council of governments and outside of their council of governments. It also establishes a task force to study election staffing. I think this legislature in general is looking at the demographic changes that are happening in our state and how that change is impacting a wide variety of public policy. And in our committee, one of those areas is election staffing. I can say that in Northeastern Connecticut, it has been a challenge for many smaller communities to be able to maintain the level of election staff that they are supposed to have, be it in the registrar or deputy registrar positions or moderators and other poll workers on election day. It's been a challenge. And so I think this is really timely, something that it is important for us to be looking at and making sure we're thinking creatively about how to support the critical infrastructure that we have in Connecticut. It has a very decentralized system, but therefore requires a lot of people power to make those elections move forward. And I encourage the committee to support this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Are there any further comments? Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, certainly the current law has these folks already in place under a different name. As was mentioned, they are currently referred to as, I'm trying to find it, monitors. That's correct. I couldn't think of that word. Yes, they're regional election monitors. And effectively what this is doing is it's taking that that essentially voluntary and unpaid position and turning that person into a state employee in this particular bill. I'm surprised that it still remains a may and not a shall in this final language. But that's just one concern that I have, is that I don't know that we necessarily need to be creating another state employee. I do have a question, Mr. Chairman, which is that it does say somewhere in subsection B that this person shall be an elector of this state. And maybe you could just elaborate on what that actually means. Does that mean something beyond they are an eligible voter? Through you, Mr. Chairman?
Senator Flexer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, let me just, before I answer the good senator's question, I do just want to clarify that current law actually makes this position a requirement of councils of government. So right now, the councils of governments are supposed to have these election monitors in place, but only 2 of them are actually abiding by the existing law. So this is transitioning that to voluntary, and these future advisors would be employees of the councils of governments and not employees of the state of Connecticut, just for clarification. And as to the question with regard to section 2, I believe the terminology that the good senator used is just a way to describe a voter. So an elector of this state is a voter. So the requirement is that any person who is chosen to be a regional election advisor would have to be eligible to vote and be a voter in the state of Connecticut.
I thank you for that answer, Madam Chairman, through Mr. Chairman. And yeah, and thank you again for the clarification. That is what I was trying to get at, which is we're going from a required unpaid monitor to a voluntarily paid advisor. That's fine. The issue about whether we're talking about a state employee or not, effectively what's going to happen is the COG will be responsible for this person, but they will be paid from state funds via a grant program established in, I think, section 2 of this bill. I don't know that that's necessary. Certainly want to help the Secretary of State administer elections. But we handle our election process on a municipal level in the state of Connecticut. I've never been a fan of regional government, partly because it's very murky how regional government works in Connecticut. And this is no slap at the COGS. It's just a matter of we're talking about non-elected people that are appointed by the various municipal leaders in each of those towns that run regional government. And they've always had a very limited function in Connecticut. And certainly my issue is not about whether or not they could take on more or less in any area, except for the fact that I think them taking on more responsibility during elections is troubling, because I do not want to undermine our local town governments when it comes to the operation of elections. Maybe I could be talked into this bill if I had a better understanding of how this is going to work between the Secretary of State, these election advisor position and the COGS, and of course how that relates to the town clerks and registrars that actually have the ultimate responsibility in running our local election process. And the only other thing I would suggest is that there is a task force created at the end of this bill. And that task force is charged with election administration in our municipalities. And I noticed that it is a typical makeup of a task force. And currently it would amount to 11 Democrats and only 6 Republicans. And as many times I've mentioned in this committee, I really do think when it comes to things like elections, we ought to try and have as bipartisan a process as possible. And I would suggest maybe a more even-handed task force. And that's something we can maybe talk about going forward. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Senator Flexer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Sampson, for those comments. I do just want to share a little bit of information with you, and I want to thank you for your willingness to work on this. I guess I'd respond first that we're certainly open to feedback about the membership of the task force, and I would hope that it may not necessarily be assumed that just because the partisan actor is making an appointment that they would necessarily only appoint people of their own party, but I'm definitely open to feedback on the makeup of that task force. And I do just want to clarify that right now, these positions are in fact paid. And when this law was first passed, I believe a little over a decade ago, the requirement was that councils of governments would have to pay these monitors. And so what has happened is that burden has completely fallen on the councils of governments that have chosen to still do it. And the councils of governments that are still doing it, at least from my perspective, out of necessity. And I'll just share two examples from Northeastern Connecticut. So in the community of Sterling, which is a town I do not represent, but I did once represent, they had a lot of difficulty maintaining the full staffing levels that they had to have in their registrar of voters office. And so when they were trying to recruit someone to take on the registrar role, this position from our Council of Governments was really vital in helping bring that person up to speed and make them feel confident in being able to step up and be the registrar so that they could have a full complement in that community. And last year in the town of Thompson, when they had to redraw their maps based on our legislative redistricting, the regional election monitor helped the town registrars make sure that when the maps were redrawn and they were reallocating where voters' polling places were, that they were accurate to what was passed here for the legislative districts, that there was no error. As we've seen in some communities, there have been errors made in the past where we pass a map and the way it's interpreted on the local level is actually an error, and there have been some serious issues that have arisen for that. So, I really appreciate Senator Sampson's remarks, and I think this is a way to provide support if it's asked for, but not to force it on anyone. But I just share with you a few examples of how this has helped communities that have had challenges, at least in my corner of the state. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Are there further remarks from the committee? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senate Bill 1190, LCO 6277, JFS to the floor. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slat, Morinbello,
Morinbello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson is no.
Master Francesco,
Master Francesco votes no.
Burger Gervalo,
votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes no.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes no.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola, Marks,
Senator Marks votes yes.
McCarthy Vehi, Representative McCarthy Vehi,
Said does.
McCrory, Parker, Rosario, Representative Rosario, Santiago,
Santiago votes yes.
all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we have item number 5 on our agenda, Senate Bill 1191, an act prohibiting the use of certain application software and programs on state government devices and requiring minimum security standards and annual audits of such devices. I will entertain a motion on a straight JF to the floor.
So moved.
A second, moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Kana. This bill would prohibit the downloading or use of one app, TikTok, onto state government devices other than for law enforcement purposes. It would also require certain agencies to develop certain minimum security standards and reports on known or potential cybersecurity threats to state information technology systems, and also enable those agencies to list applications, software, or devices that should be prohibited under those cybersecurity standards. Is there further comment from the committee? Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, so I looked at this bill with great interest, especially since I had a little dialogue with Senator Duff here during the public hearing on this bill. And I mean, looking through the bill, I am in very much support of the policy that is here. Section 2 creates effectively a standard by which we would determine whether or not a particular application would jeopardize our security standards. And I think it's very well thought out. I appreciate the notion of that we're trying to move in the right direction to address what I think is going to be a growing and more sinister issue in future years, which is threats in the data realm, cybersecurity issues, and that type of thing. So I'm very much in support of this policy. My concern really is the relevance of including section 1 subsection B, which specifically mentions TikTok as an entity that needs to be removed. And it's not because I have any great fondness for TikTok. It is simply that I believe that the policy itself stands on its own, and based on the policy information that's here, if there is evidence to suggest that TikTok is an entity that would fall into this category as a cybersecurity threat, then they would already be covered under the policy. There's no need to include language that calls them out by name. And I think it's a dangerous practice to start calling out various entities by name in our laws, rather than making quite clear that we're setting a policy that applies to everyone, all citizens, and in this case, entities, businesses, equally. And I just don't think it's good form. Furthermore, I had asked Senator Duff to send me some information on what had led him to testify on the bill, and I appreciate the information that he provided me. And I've done a lot of my own research, and I will tell you that, you know, what I come up with when I start researching TikTok as a cybersecurity threat is simply that they do the same things that other social media entities do, which is they capture as much data as they possibly can from people that are using their service. And the concern, obviously, is that TikTok is associated with a parent company called ByteDance, which is a Chinese company. Outside of the potential threat, which is the way the FBI characterized it in their press releases, and other experts in the many newspaper articles that I've read, they always say that the issue with TikTok is that it is a potential threat because of the data that they mine and capture, similar to other social media outlets, and their connection to the Chinese government. And I'm certainly sympathetic to that notion, but that is different than an actual, I would guess say, documentary proof that there is something going on. To me, the safest solution is to establish a policy that doesn't allow any social media or privacy invading data mining to go on at all. And in particular, when it comes to state devices. I know that that conversation will come up after I'm done here. But I want to start this conversation, Mr. Chairman, by offering an amendment to say the policy is good. If the policy captures TikTok or anyone else, then that's great. But I don't believe that it's proper to be naming TikTok in particular. First off, I have yet to see something that I consider to be 100% foolproof. If that does exist and they fall into this category of cybersecurity threat, then absolutely ban them. But I keep asking people to send me something that is proof, and I don't see it. I see potential threat. That's what I see. I'm just a big proponent of defending our Fourth Amendment due process rights in this country, and I don't like the idea of naming entities because they're potentially dangerous. I'd much rather make sure that we only assign negative attributes to people that we can say for certain are guilty of something. But safety makes the easy solution, which is to just prevent this activity no matter what. And that would solve us a lot of problems. So with all of that, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to offer an amendment We'll call it Amendment A. And effectively what it does is it removes lines 18 through 22 inclusive of the underlying bill, which is the reference to TikTok. It will not change the policy, and it will not change whether or not TikTok is specifically included in the policy decision to whether or not they should be banned or not. And I urge adoption, and I'd like a roll call vote. And I have some printed copies if I could pass them out.
Thank you, Senator Sampson. Is there further comment? Or first of all, is there a second on the amendment? Seconded by Representative Mastrofrancesco. Is there further comment on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll offer my own comment, which is I welcome the opportunity to discuss this issue further. First of all, and to address several of the comments made and potential misconceptions around this bill, especially from our young people who at first glance may consider this bill quite sus. The objective here is not to beat up on TikTok, the app per se. Some members of this committee may have TikTok accounts. Some may view TikTok. There's no intent to beat up on TikTok per se. The difference between TikTok and other social media services is that the parent company of TikTok is a Chinese company. There has been much public reporting on the Chinese government's pressure on and ability to control Chinese companies. There has also been much public reporting on the Chinese government using as a national security strategy the theft of trade secrets or other copyrighted or patent protected information to advance its own interests. And so given the amount of data that these social media services are able to collect on individuals in sensitive positions in state government, or the kinds of sensitive information they may be able to collect on state devices that are controlled by people who are in state government. There's a special and distinct threat in relation to TikTok's parent company that does not apply to other social media services. Additionally, this is a situation in which we have some evidence that there has been some compromising of that data by the parent company. There have been public reports on accessing of American reporters by parent company employees in China. So in our view, there is a distinct and national security related threat related to the fact that TikTok is owned by this Chinese parent company, and that employees of the parent company have accessed personal data of individuals in the United States, where there was not a proper method or means for doing so. And for that reason, and for related reasons, it makes sense in our view to identify TikTok in this bill, although other policies may ultimately preclude its being accessed on state government devices in any event. So I would urge my colleagues to reject the amendment. And with that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll? Anyone else? Oh, sorry. If I could just, I'm sorry, I missed Representative Mastrofrancesco wanted to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This actually is a really good amendment because I think the purpose here is to make sure that we are protecting our devices here from any kind of threat whatsoever. Not only we'll say TikTok. It really covered the base for everything. So I get concerned that there's going to be another application, another app out there that could possibly down the road do the same thing. And so what would happen is that we would be back here voting to include a different company, a different app name, where this really would solve the problem for today and for the future. to make sure that all of our devices are protected from a security threat without singling out any one particular company or application. So, Mr. Chairman, I fully approve. I certainly support this amendment. I think it will certainly solve the problem going forward, and I urge my colleagues to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Seeing no further comment, I will just reiterate that for the reasons I said before, I urge my colleagues to reject this amendment. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Sampson, Amendment A. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes no.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes no.
Slat. Bello,
Bello votes no.
Sampson,
Sampson is yes.
Master Francesco,
Master Francesco votes yes.
Burger Givallo,
Burger Givallo votes no.
Bronco,
Bronco votes yes.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes no.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes yes.
Kana,
Kana votes no.
Labriola, Marks,
Senator Marks votes no.
McCarthy Vehy,
McCarthy Vehy votes no.
McCrory, Parker, Rosario,
Rosario votes no.
Santiago,
Santiago votes no.
all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. When you're prepared, please announce the tally.
4 yea, 10 nay, 5 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The amendment fails. Is there further comment on this bill? Representative Hoxa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to present my own amendment in regards to this bill. And with your permission, I'd like to pass out some hard copies so everybody can have a chance to read it.
Thank you. They will be distributed. And you may summarize the amendment whenever you're prepared.
Thank you, sir. In a similar spirit to Senator Sampson's proposed amendment, my view is that and I know the senator and Representative Master Francesco had mentioned this in their remarks that if we're going to apply the banning of if we're going to ban one social media application company, namely TikTok, that we should potentially apply that standard to all other companies that have the same capabilities. I am fully aware of the potentially different circumstances of TikTok being a company that is that has a parent company which is owned by Chinese actors, and that does concern me on the national security front potentially. I have also seen some of the same evidence that you were speaking to, Mr. Chair. And I know that alone for some people may not be sufficient to do a very micro targeting ban of TikTok itself. And I can appreciate that. And I'm not here to say that that there's overwhelming evidence, that, shows that TikTok, has actively been, doing things, unscrupulous things to, just put it that way. But the fact that they have direct links to the Chinese government and are providing a service and or product that has the capabilities of monitoring our data at the macro and micro level, right, is for me personally enough reason for concern to support some sort of, I guess, sanction against the company. But in the spirit of, not in the spirit of addressing what I believe is the deeper issue here, which is that, companies, large corporations that have these technological capabilities to harvest and mine data, and that have kind of broken into this new frontier of the digital age, and companies that have this level of technological ability to really do some to really conduct a lot of these types of activities and have the potential to do the damage that they can do. I find that very concerning, whether Chinese, American, or whatever. So with that said, not to beat a dead horse here, I think my point is well taken. That is why I offer this amendment to essentially, ban the, social media from, all types of social media in so far as how they may be on, government devices in the same way that the original bill would seek to ban TikTok. And, I ask that my colleagues on both sides of the aisle support this friendly amendment here, which is in line with the spirit of the original bill. And that is it, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Is there a second to the motion? Seconded by Representative Mastrofrancesco. Is there further comment on the bill? Or excuse me, on the amendment? Seeing none, I will say that, first of all, I appreciate the representative's comments. Certainly, social media as a whole has revolutionized how we relate to each other and to society. Certainly, a number of social media companies have demonstrated not only that they are accessing and collecting vast amounts of data on all of us, but also that there's reason to have a severe trust deficit, regardless of their national origin, about how they handle that data. That being said, while there are bills currently in Congress and in this General Assembly to deal with those broader issues, this bill is not one of them. And this bill was framed quite narrowly to deal with the distinct and narrow potential national security threat that TikTok's Chinese national parent could create. And as a result, while I welcome a broader conversation generally on the role of social media and to what extent those apps should be on state government devices, I will urge my colleagues to reject this amendment to this bill today. And with that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Hoxa Amendment A, Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes no.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes no.
Slap, Morinbello,
Morinbello votes no.
Sampson,
Sampson is yes.
Mastrofrancesco,
Mastrofrancesco votes yes.
Burger Givallo,
Burger Givallo votes no.
Branco,
Bronco votes yes.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes no.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes yes.
Kana,
Kana votes no.
Labriola, Marks,
Marks votes no.
McCarthy Vehy,
Representative McCarthy Vehy votes no.
McCrory, Parker, Rosario,
Representative Rosario votes no.
Santiago,
Santiago votes no.
all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And when you're prepared, would you please announce the tally?
4 yea, 10 nay, 5 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The amendment fails. Is there further comment on this bill? Representative Mastrofrancesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have to be honest, I really struggle with this bill I'm really torn. I like it and I don't like it. I am concerned about a couple things. It's ironic, this issue with TikTok just came to fruition maybe within the last few years. And it really is ironic that back in 2020, President Trump actually issued an executive order removing additional downloads from TikTok. Now that came into some legal challenges, and it never actually began and enforced. And then, crazy enough, President Biden rescinded that executive order, citing wanting some more, a little bit more oversight, but actually rescinded that executive order. So my point to that is that I don't think this issue is a partisan issue. I don't think it's a more of a Democrat or a Republican issue. I think it's just a concern issue, but I just found it very interesting that President Trump put an executive order in to ban it, and the President Biden actually reversed that. I just found that really interesting. I don't know if I would say that our party here, the Democrat Party here, agrees that maybe President Trump was making the right move. I don't know. But there's a lot of apps on there, and this is what happens with social media. This issue, whether it's TikTok, I believe they have another company called WeChat, which I've never heard of, owned by the Chinese, by China. This is an issue that's going to evolve as social media evolves even further. I mean, it certainly has expanded enough already. And I get concerned that we are going to be back here banning yet another company if we don't like what they have. I haven't seen any solid proof of what's going on with TikTok and spying. I really wish I had a lot more information on it, and that's really why I'm torn. I want to give people the freedom to certainly do what they think is best, but I also am very concerned that when you're working for the state government, the citizens of this state are your employer, right? And as an employer, I don't feel that you should be on social media during the work hours anyway. And that's the part that I really struggle with. And can this issue be addressed administratively through policies and procedures, maybe code of conduct within the department, as opposed to just banning one particular company? Because I can guarantee you that another company is going to come along and maybe the government won't like it. And is it, if the other real concern, not to get off topic here, is that I am very concerned about this, that it really is going to start infringing on your freedom of speech. So if we allow the state of Connecticut to remove applications from devices, government devices, what will be next? And what will be the next company that will be a target? And maybe it won't be because they feel that they are a threat of national security. Maybe they will just not like them. Those are really the concerns I have. But I'm very torn, because I do agree that these should not be on government devices, and that people work for the state government. They should be doing their work during the day, unless this type of an application is a requirement within your job. I understand the police and law enforcement may need access to this. And even within ourselves as elected officials, maybe the staff needs access to some of this information. So I'm really torn on that. The other issue I don't know with, by banning these from, not even say the word banning, removing these applications from government devices. And I guess this would be a question I have to the good chairman, is there anything in the collective bargaining agreement that you know of that employees that hold government devices, what they can and cannot do with them in their possession? Through you, Mr. Chairman.
To you, Representative, I'm not aware of any restrictions in the collective bargaining agreements that would prevent the state government from telling state employees what they can or cannot have, or how they can or cannot use their state devices. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's not, if I'm understanding correctly, I don't really know if there's anything in the collective bargaining agreement that actually says that they can or cannot do any with their use these applications on their device. If this was to pass, excuse me, would this have to go to a collective bargaining for the union to actually look at the language? Because I don't know if you're not really changing anything in the contract, but you are creating a law. And I thought union contracts have supersedence. And I'm just looking for clarification on that, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. To you, to my knowledge, this would not be implicated in any way this bill would not implicate in any way a collective bargaining agreement. To you.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. I really don't know how I feel about this bill. Like I said, I'm torn both ways. I'm more concerned about a little bit more of a government overreach if they can have applications be removed from government devices. What's next? And then we're singling out one particular company. And again, like I said, we are going to have multiple companies that could be accused without due process of maybe gathering intelligent information on people. I don't know. This is what happens when it comes to social media, and this is the technology world that we live in today. So I have very much concerns about it. I don't have any other further questions, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, I may support this coming out of committee today. I don't know. I'm going to make a decision like that. I'm very torn on it. But certainly when it gets to the floor, I may change my mind. There are a lot of concerns here, and we probably need to gather some more information on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just listening to all of the dialogue here, and in particular, the failure of what I thought were two very well thought out and very pointed amendments that would not have changed the underlying policy mission of the bill that's in front of us. It's frustrating because it's going to make this vote a lot harder for me than it needs to be. And it's unfortunate because I look at this bill because of these few sentences on lines 18 through 22 as more of a political statement than a policy proposal. The policy does not change one way or the other, whether that section stays in there, and that section is there only so someone can claim that they targeted TikTok. And there's no reason to target TikTok. We should target any company that is engaged in any cybersecurity threat, period, end of story. That's it. Doesn't matter where it came from. And if you remove that section, the bill would still have that force and impact. But yet the majority has decided that they want to retain that section and call out this one particular business. As I said before, I got no love for or against TikTok or anybody else. But to suggest that somehow they are more of a threat than some other company is because of their association with a different country, I think is false. I wouldn't trust Mark Zuckerberg with my data either. I mean, I don't know. He could sell it to China for all I know. And this bill encompasses a bunch of different factors. First off, the real issue here is that if we're talking only about state devices, then we shouldn't be allowing any social media on any state devices, period, unless it's for a governmental purpose. And that was the Second Amendment offered my friend Representative Hoxa, and that was a good amendment. I think everyone in the room actually agrees with that policy. Why it couldn't be incorporated within this bill is somewhat frustrating. I would disagree with the chairman when he said that this bill is to deal with the narrow threat that TikTok presents. This is a very broad policy statement. Section 2 lays out the entire creation of how the chief information officer and chief information security officer within DAS and several other folks that deal with ITS and state government are going to develop a policy to combat cybersecurity. And that's a good thing. And Section 2 of this bill, I think, is really all that we need outside of the definitions. Naming a particular business, I think, is makes it lose its impact in one respect for me. And I guess the whole thing is kind of sus, actually, at this point. Anyway, I'm going to vote for the bill today. Mr. Chairman, to me, the policy is more important than my opposition, but I got to tell you, if this bill comes to the Senate floor and it still names a particular business entity, I will say how flawed it is again, and I can't promise I'll support it at that point. There's no reason. You don't have to do that. If you've already identified them by virtue of whether or not they're a cybersecurity threat, you either believe they are a cybersecurity threat and they're captured in Section 2, or you don't. And if you don't believe that they're captured in Section 2, then you shouldn't be putting them in another portion of the bill just to capture them, is my opinion. And it's just bad form and bad practice to promote policy based on things that will get attention because we're naming a high profile business that is in the news. We should be setting policy and not playing political maneuvering here in this committee, Mr. Chairman. And so I'm going to vote yes today. And hopefully we can come to terms about how we're going to establish a policy that social media should not be on state devices except for very specific and legitimate government purposes, and that we should have a cybersecurity policy that applies to all parties equally. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there further comment on the bill? Seeing none. Let me just make sure there's no one on Zoom. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you for those comments. Just to clarify my remarks earlier in response to the ranking member's comments, by narrow I meant we are narrowly tailored to one player that we know has certain threats associated with it that we are specifically identifying, although others may fall under the cybersecurity standards that may be promulgated going forward. And in addition to having those specific concerns related to its parent company, the parent company is not subject to the laws of the United States because it's not located here. So that's an additional reason for concern. All that being said, obviously we welcome continued conversation on the subject. With that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senate Bill 1191 JF to the floor. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slap, Morinbello,
Morinbello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson votes yes.
Mastro Francesco,
Representative Mastro Francesco votes no.
Burger Givallo,
Burger Givallo votes yes.
Branco,
Bronco votes yes.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes yes.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola, Marks,
Marks votes yes.
McCarthy Vehi, Representative McCarthy Vehi, McCrory, Parker, Rosario,
Rosario votes yes.
Santiago,
Santiago votes yes.
all set, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next up, we have item number 6, Senate Bill 1221, an act concerning the enforcement of violations of the Freedom of Information Act and the reporting of open requests. This is a JFS to the floor, LCO number 6334. I will entertain a motion. And a second. Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Morinbello. This bill would address an issue that's recently come to our attention through public reporting, in that there are some public agencies that have not been complying in a timely fashion with Freedom of Information requests. And in order to give the Freedom of Information Commission additional tools in which to ensure proper compliance with the obligations of our Freedom of Information laws, this bill would increase the fine for violations and also give the Freedom of Information Commission the power to pursue injunctive relief for pattern or practice violations of our Freedom of Information laws. Are there any further comments? Senator Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a conversation in caucus about this bill, and I'm looking for the language in the bill itself. Would this penalty be applied just to the agency in question, or could it be applied to an agency commissioner if they were the one making the final determination?
I'm looking at lines number 79 through 83, which appear to allow such a penalty if the person is individually responsible for the violation, but I think otherwise it would be levied against the agency.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I found it at the same time you did, where it takes out, it's just a correction, change, takes out him and puts such person, but I'm glad they put that change in there because it helped me find it. Yeah, you know, the thing about this really is two points. One is that I think that levying fines against agencies is somewhat pointless activity. I mean, you're effectively asking for tax dollars from one agency to give to another state agency. I mean, it's all tax money. I don't know that anyone feels any real significant penalty when that happens. The fact that this can be applied to an individual, I think, is a positive thing. And considering that, the decision maker at a state agency is going to be probably a very well-paid commissioner, $1,000 penalty is probably not as much of an issue as a $10,000 penalty. So I'm actually starting to like this bill even more and more. Please understand that this only gets applied in the most very serious circumstances. The language that's in the bill says this, it has to reach the level of an act or reckless, willful, or wanton misconduct with regard to the delay or denial of responses to requests for public records under FOIA. The public records belong to the public. And if someone is going to actually engage in act or reckless or willful or wanton misconduct with regard to the delay of providing them, I think they should be punished. And I think they should be punished personally. So I'm going to support the bill before us today, Mr. Chairman. I think this is a good item. I don't know how people in the committee feel about it, but unless there was an objection, I would add this one to the. No, I guess there's objections.
Representative Mazzarri-Francesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick follow-up from Senator Sampson. And it's basically saying, and this is in regards to the fine that goes from 1,000 up to 10,000. If I'm understanding this correctly, a department head or administrator within a department, if they are willfully holding back information, they can be personally fined up to $10,000. Did I read that correctly through you?
To you, Representative Mazzarri-Francesco, thank you for the question. So first of all, just to clarify, this is the existing law that an individual who is responsible for a frivolous appeal or otherwise willfully withholding information could be subject to a fine personally. The only thing we're doing to change this is to change the maximum fine from 1,000 to 10,000. But yes, to you.
Thank you. I'm just curious, do we have any data of, have these fines been implied before? Has there been a history? Do you know about how many times somebody was fined for this through you?
To you, Representative, I don't have the data at my fingertips today, but I know that they have been applied. I know that there's a high standard for these fines as we described previously, and that there's been public reporting that the FOIC has considered and testimony from the FOIC that they have considered the current maximum fine an insufficient deterrent and are worried that potentially agencies are considering it a cost of doing business. And certainly we would not want that to be the case. To you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree. I think the Freedom of Information, they do a really good job, and certainly we don't want anybody holding back purposely or willfully any type of information. And the fines going from 1,000 up to 10,000 are pretty steep, but I guess that might be maybe a wake-up call to some of the departments to get that information over to the Freedom of Information. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Representative. Okay, Representative Hoxa.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kindly request a roll call vote, please.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further comment on this bill? If not, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senate Bill 1221, LCO 6334, JFS to the floor. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slatt, Morinbello,
Morinbello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson is yes.
Master Francesco,
Master Francesco votes yes.
Burger Gervalo,
Burger Gervalo votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes no.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes no.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola, Marks,
Marks votes yes.
McCarthy Vehi,
Representative McCarthy Vahey votes yes.
McCrory, Parker, Rosario,
Rosario votes yes.
Santiago.
Santiago votes yes.
All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next up on our agenda, we have item number 7, Senate Bill 1223, an act concerning the state contracts, an act concerning the State Contracting Standards Board. This will be a JFS to the floor of LCO number 6350. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Senator Flexer has moved the motion. Representative Haddad second. Senator Flexer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the bill before us today has been before this committee before. I'm proud that in the past, our work on these issues in this committee has been done in a bipartisan fashion. And I'm particularly excited that as we consider this legislation this year, we are considering it with a contracting standards board that is finally fully staffed and able to execute its long-awaited mission. Not that it hasn't done a good job in the past, but it had to do so with really limited resources. And so the proposal before us today expands some of the authority of the State Contracting Standards Board. It makes sure that agencies, the definition of a state contracting agency includes quasi-public agencies. It grants the Contracting Standards Board the same independence as other watchdog agencies and making sure that OPM cannot modify their budget requests, which has been an issue in the past under multiple administrations, which I would add has diminished the board's ability to be successful since it was created almost 20 years ago. It expands the agency's procurement duties and adds analyses under the privatization statutes. And it makes sure that the Contracting Standards Board has independence from the Office of Policy and Management, which I think we can all agree under any administration is a political entity, whereas this board is not. It also makes some changes for the emergency procurement regulations that the board currently has to switch them from currently being mandatory to permissive. This again is an issue that we've had a lot of debate on in the last several years, and I'm hopeful that we can support this today and continue to move forward with good transparency for all taxpayers in Connecticut. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is there further comment from the committee? Representative Master Francesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The state contracting standard boards, I think, does a pretty decent job. They do have oversight, which I like, and I want to make sure that we have transparency and we have oversight on our procurement and many projects. I'm wondering if the contracting standards board, is this too much for them to take on? I don't know. Every year we seem to be adding more responsibility to them. And the only other concern I have is the requirement for the agency to approve, I guess, or consult with the contracting standards board prior to entering into a privatization contract. I could appreciate that as well, though, because I think we definitely need some oversight. So I'm going to support this today because I do believe in the process. But I will certainly be monitoring to make sure that none of our projects are being held up. I don't want to see any of our projects being held up, by no means. And if we certainly have the opportunity to privatize a contract, and if it's going to be good policy and it's going to save the state and the taxpayers money, I think it's a good thing. I certainly don't, but I don't want to see that board hold anything up. But I will support this today and certainly keep watching it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further comment on this bill? If not, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Senate Bill 1223, LCO 6350, JFS to the floor. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slack, Morinbello,
Morinbello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson votes yes.
Master Francesco,
Master Francesco votes yes.
Burger Gervalo,
Burger Gervalo votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes no.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes no.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola, Marks,
Marks votes yes.
McCarthy Vehy,
Representative McCarthy Vehy votes yes.
McCrory, Parker, Rosario,
Representative Rosario votes yes.
Santiago,
Santiago votes yes.
all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on our agenda is item number 8, House Resolution 8, a resolution recognizing that all land in Connecticut was once Native American territory. This is a motion for a House favorable substitute, and because it is a House resolution, only House members may vote on it. I will entertain a motion for a House favorable substitute on LCO number 6320. Moved by Representative Haddad, seconded by Representative Morinbello. Is there further comment on this bill? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
House Resolution 8, LCO 6320, House favorable substitute. Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Morinbello,
Morinbello votes yes.
Master Francesco,
Master Francesco votes no.
Burger Gervalo,
Burger Gervalo votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes no.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes no.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola, McCarthy Vehy,
McCarthy Vehy votes yes.
Parker. Rosario,
Rosario votes yes.
Santiago,
Santiago votes yes.
all set, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next up, we have item number 9, which is House Bill 6077, an act establishing a process for the addition of diverse statutes to the state capitol building and establishing a state historical commission. This is a joint favorable substitute to the floor, LCO number 6286. I will entertain a motion. Moved by Representative Morambello, seconded by Representative Haddad. This bill would add to the duties of the current State Commission on Capital Preservation and Restoration, the duty to develop as part of a master plan, a process for identifying and commissioning additional statutes, not statutes, statues to be added to the exterior of the state capitol building. And that those statues, in addition to whatever other meritorious and exemplary categories they should express, reflect the diversity of the state. In addition, this bill would create a state historical commission, which would issue reports and recommendations at the request of the 3 branches of government for how to address certain historical topics having to do with history, memory, and recognition in our state. Is there further comment on this bill? Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have a few more technical questions, and then we can get to the substance of the policy decision that's being made here. I'm just trying to follow all of the state agencies, commissions, and people involved in this relatively short bill proposal. It's only a few pages long, but there's a lot of people being appointed to different things. Apparently, under current law, there is a state commission on capital preservation and restoration. And the purpose of this bill is to change that commission's purview and give them new instructions. But my understanding, looking at the appointment of the people involved, that the current breakdown would be 10 Democrats to 2 Republicans. And maybe somebody might correct me on that if they add it up. I just did it very quickly, but it looks like there's only 2 minority appointments, and that's the House and Senate minority leader, and there are 12 people total. The other 10 would be from the majority party currently, which is the Democrat Party. So it would be 10 to 2. The State Commission on Capital Preservation would receive this new charge, which we're going to talk about in a moment. And then there is going to be created in Section 3 a new State Historical Commission, which is an independent body within the legislative department for administrative purposes only. And that commission shall examine and make recommendations to the 3 branches on questions of memorialization and commemoration related to Connecticut and United States history. It sounds to me like we're going to have competing people advising legislative management, which is the 3rd body that is addressed also in Section 1. And that is current law, though that might have a minor change to it. But this new State Historical Commission, when I try and add up those members, and I didn't quite get to do it, but it looks like it's about the same thing. Another is it 7 to 6, Madam Chairman? Okay, I'll take your word for it. I couldn't do it that quickly. I got I think 8 to 4 when I did it, but we can double check that. The reason why I bring up these commissions and these members is because I just feel like when it comes to, you know, a topic like determining whether or not something is of historical value or should be memorialized or commemorated, it seems to me that that's something that ought to have broad support, and it ought to be done in a bipartisan fashion. And I just don't get that impression from here. And what concerns me is the policy decision that is being made at the same time. We are instructing the existing commission in section 2B to do the following. The commission shall develop as part of such master plan a process for identifying and commissioning additional statues to be added to the exterior of the state capitol building. Fine. But then it goes on to say that reflect the diversity of the state. And certainly I'm not opposed to diversity. The fact of the matter is that we are a diverse state, and we have people of all walks of life. We got people of every ethnicity. We have, people, men and women. And I can also recognize the desire to maybe update the appearance of our capital to something that is more in keeping with our society currently. It just so happens that when it comes to the statues that are on our building, they have been chosen over time. And many of them were chosen in a time where things were not fair. When women didn't have the right to vote, for example, much less serve as governor of the state of Connecticut. And I would say that was wrong then, as it's wrong now. But that's a matter of history. And I think that this policy is being put in front of us for a reason. But what I would suggest to people that view the world in this way is that have faith and trust in our current group of people that are making these decisions to be operating in 2023 Connecticut, America, and that they're not operating in 1840 America. And they're naturally going to be making choices that reflect more women, certainly, and more people that are minorities. It's just going to happen as a matter of course, because that's the way we view society today. And what concerns me is that rather than simply letting that take its course, because our society has changed and the decisions that we are making are changing with it. I mean, look, this country in 1830, I don't think anyone could have imagined that we would have an African-American president, but we did. The country evolved and we elected an African-American president for 2 terms. There are more women serving in government. There are more minorities serving in government in every aspect of our state government than ever before. In fact, yesterday we had a similar conversation in the Labor Committee, and it was pointed out by my co-ranking member that the data is online, and it reflects that there are actually superior numbers of both women and African Americans in our state government versus the state population. So I think that is a great accomplishment from a societal standpoint. And I just feel like when you start to make policy to require activity like that, you're cheapening the fact that our society is actually improving naturally. And what concerns me more than anything is that those activities that prohibited women and minorities from being recognized and memorialized throughout our history, those activities were wrong. Those prejudices, that discrimination, that bias was wrong. It's still wrong. And I'm afraid that this policy perpetuates that attitude, because effectively what was wrong is that people were discriminating against other people based on race and gender. And what this policy says, by requiring that the statues be added to the exterior of the state capitol building, reflecting the diversity of the state, is suggesting that new statues ought to be selected by paying attention to people's race and gender. That's how we got into this problem. And I don't want to perpetuate it. So I believe that language becomes very dangerously close to a quota, which we know from federal debates, Supreme Court decisions, so forth, certainly about other types of policies, is not constitutional. And I believe this language is a commandment to say that if the diversity of the state breaks down to a certain percentage of men versus women and a certain percentage of, race A versus race B, et cetera, that is what is going to be required to be represented on our list of statues on the Capitol building. Some others might disagree with my interpretation, but I think that is a pretty plain reading of this bill. When you say that statues to be added to the exterior of the state that reflect the diversity of the state. It could mean simply that it's superfluous language, it's flowery language to suggest that we're celebrating diversity and that we know that because our society is advanced, that we will have more women and more minority representation. In which case I got no problem with it, but that's a dangerous thing to put in statute because it can also be interpreted the way I'm reading it, which is that it is a commandment and a requirement, a mandate, in fact, that the statues must reflect the diversity of the state. And as a result, I'd like to support this bill. And the only way that I can do that is if I am confident that we are going to choose statues and to memorialize people based on their merit and not because we are somehow playing a new version of discrimination and racism that is somehow better than one in the past, because no discrimination and no racism is good ever. So I have an amendment, Mr. Chairman, and the amendment is very straightforward, and it simply replaces the language that is underlined in the bill before us, starting on line 30, ending on line 33, that says shall develop as part of such master plan a process for identifying and commissioning additional statues to be added to the exterior of the state capitol building that reflect the diversity of the state. And the new language would be shall develop as part of such master plan a process for identifying and commissioning additional statues to be added to the exterior of the state capitol building that reflect meritorious and exemplary service to the state and its history. I move adoption. I'd like a roll call. And I believe, Mr. Chairman, that this will absolutely mean that there will be more women and more minorities reflected in those choices in the future because our society has advanced and that we don't need to be creating quotas or some additional policy that requires people to view race and gender when making these decisions. Merit should be the deciding factor when whether people should be commemorated or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. The amendment is moved. Is there a second? Representative Mastrofrancesco seconds. Is there further comment on the amendment from members of the committee? Seeing none, I'll just offer my own. I appreciate the sense that statues and other memorialization in our capital and elsewhere should be for meritorious and exemplary service. I think that is implied in the fact of us creating statues or other recognition. Statues and other forms of recognition or memorialization in official buildings or on official land are pretty much always considered to be a celebration of the individuals involved. And I believe that this would continue to highlight the service of those who have done meritorious and exemplary things. And I would just want to respond a bit to the comments of the good ranking member with regard to the provision that the commission would consider diversity. I respectfully disagree with his characterization that it could be a quota. To me, I read this as only creating a process for identifying and commissioning additional statues that would consider, in addition to all the other considerations, the diversity of the state. And I think that it's a basic value in addition to memorializing exemplary and meritorious people, that we should also reflect the diversity of our state in those memorializations. I think it matters to individuals who walk through our halls, who see what statements we're making about who we consider exemplary and memorialize. It provides inspiration to individuals. It makes people feel seen. And so I think it's a good value to be taking into account. Certainly not as the only one, certainly not above all others. We want all of our memorializations to be of individuals that are worthy of admiration and are meritorious. But I think it's a worthy value to aspire to along with all of these others. And so with that, I would ask Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Sampson Amendment A, Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes no.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes no.
Slap, Morinbello,
Morinbello votes no.
Sampson,
Sampson is yes.
Mastro Francesco,
Master Francesco is yes.
Burger Girbalo,
Burger Girbalo, no.
Bronco,
Bronco votes yes.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes no.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes yes.
Kana,
Kana votes no.
Labriola, Marks,
Senator Marks votes no.
McCarthy Vehi,
McCarthy Vahey votes no.
McCrory,
McCrory votes no.
Parker, Rosario,
Rosario votes no.
Santiago,
Santiago votes no.
all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Whenever you're ready, would you please announce the tally?
4 yea, 11 nay, 4 absent.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The amendment fails. Senator Sampson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just want, well, I'll mention that, serving in the legislature in a partisan legislature is in some ways a tremendous gift, because I get to do something that a lot of other people don't get to do. And that's not just serve in a lawmaking body, but it's also actually to get to know people that have an entirely different worldview on a more personal level, and to even become friendly with them, and trying to find a way to respect their views and hopefully have that respect reciprocated. And I feel like we have that on this committee, and I appreciate that very much. But I will also say that it's somewhat of a curse, because you also realize that no matter how hard you try sometimes to understand people that have a different worldview and how they see things, you just can't do it. And they probably feel the same way about me and others. And this bill is a very good indication of that. I don't know how we could be so far off in our view, but we just simply do. And I'm trying very hard to understand why my amendment, which I think is extremely straightforward, and the case that I made for it would be rejected. Would really like to support a bill like this. Mr. Chairman, I would just suggest, number one, that the commissions that are established that we talked about early on in this conversation do need to be more even-handed. I think that they are very much weighted towards the majority. The existing commission, as we said, is currently 10 Democrats to 2 Republicans. And the new commission, I don't know what we ultimately said, but I think that it's nearly the same kind of weighting. So I'm hopeful that we can work together on this policy and maybe come up with something that is a little bit more neutral as far as the makeup of those commissions, simply because if we're going to be focused on memorializing individuals and commemorating their service to the state of Connecticut, that's something that I think it'll be prudent for everyone to agree on, and not simply decisions made by one majority that has a significant advantage over the minority. And I will just reiterate my concern about the language in the bill. The chairman mentioned that, this is about creating a process. And he's absolutely right. The word process is right in the language. And the fact is that when you develop a process for identifying and commissioning additional statues to be added to the exterior of the state that reflect the diversity of the state, that means that that process has to take into consideration the diversity of the state to make those determinations. As I said, I believe our society has advanced dramatically, and the injustices of the past, while they have not been completely corrected, we are on a journey, starting with the Declaration of Independence, which presented a beautiful idea that was not realized at the time. All men are created equal, and some advancement along the way. The Civil War, as ugly as it was, advanced that cause, and Lincoln recognized that at the time, that we were still working on getting to the dream. All men are created equal. Martin Luther King Jr. also, another key person in our history that moved us closer to the dream of getting us to a place where our country is reflective of those ideals laid out in the Declaration. And I would like us to keep moving in that direction. For me, the way to do that is to stop playing the gender and race card every day in our lawmaking. It ought to be to put that aside and make a point of recognizing that we are advancing, that more and more people who are historically disadvantaged are benefiting from the fact that we are in a better place in 2023 than we were in years past. I think that this bill creates a quota system instead of recognizing that we are good enough to make smart choices and that our future decisions would reflect more women and more minorities, simply as a result that we are better people today, and we live in a better society than in the past. So I'm disappointed that my amendment was not adopted. And I will continue to do my best to try and understand my colleagues and how they view the world. And I hope they will do the same for me, because I know that each of us here are all interested in the same thing, which is pursuing the best version of our country and its people that we can have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Sampson. Is there further comment on this bill? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
House Bill 6077, LCO 6286, JFS to the floor. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slap, Senator Slap, Morinbello,
Morinbello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson is no.
Mastro Francesco,
Master Francesco votes no.
Burger Gervalo,
Burger Gervalo votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes no.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes no.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola, Marks, Senator Marks, McCarthy Vehy,
McCarthy Vehy votes yes.
McCrory,
McCrory votes yes.
Parker, Rosario,
Rosario votes yes.
Santiago,
Santiago votes yes.
all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next up on our agenda, we have item number 10, House Bill 6401, an act concerning the use of low embodied carbon concrete in state construction projects. This is a JF to the floor. I will entertain a motion. Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Haddad. This bill would essentially codify what the Department of Administrative Services is already doing, which is give a slight preference to what is called low embodied carbon concrete, which is essentially recycled concrete, which is has reduced global warming potential due to the fact that it is recycled, where such products and materials are available and their price is within 10% of the cost of non-low embodied carbon concrete. Is there further comment on this bill? Representative Master-Francesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This particular bill I find actually interesting. Not many people testified on this bill. The only thing I see on testimony are two companies that offer, or one company actually that offers low carbon concrete. There was actually no testimony from any of the departments in Connecticut, the Department of DAS and so forth. And I would have liked to hear from them because I would like to become a little bit more familiar with this process. I understand that they are already doing this. I'm curious, I guess, with them or maybe to the proponent of this bill, why do we have to give preferential preference? If it's good material and it's cost effective, it probably should be used. Why do we have to give preferences? I guess that's probably one of the questions I would have asked DAS. They are not here. They did not testify. I'm sorry. They did not submit any written testimony. So I'm going to flag this today with a no, Mr. Chairman, and maybe between now and when and if should this bill come to the floor, I may get some more information on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further comment or question on this bill? Oh, Representative Berger-Javallo.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I think it's just important to mention that concrete, because of one of its components, which is Portland cement, is one of the worst global warming offenders. Low embodied carbon concrete options are growing in popularity. This will just encourage innovation, but doesn't require future legislative changes to achieve the goals that we're looking for. So I stand in strong support of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further question or comment from members? is muted. So once that is resolved, we will continue. No, just on the,
It's resolved.
all right, very
Okay.
well.
Can I still vote on that last?
Thank you
vote?
very much. Was there anyone who didn't get to vote because of that audio issue who wants to do so now?
I would like
Everyone
to,
Zoom?
Mr. Chair.
No. Okay, so we'll address those votes at the end. Okay, so one moment after we allow the clerk to reconfigure her computer, we'll be ready to take your votes. Can we do it now? Okay.
Senator Slapp. House Bill 6401 JF to the floor. Senator Slapp. Burger Gervalo.
Burger Gervalo votes yes.
Carpino. Labriola. Marks. Rosario.
Rosario votes yes.
Santiago.
Santiago votes yes.
All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next up on our agenda, we have item number 11, HB 6827, an act concerning the State Properties Review Board. This bill would expand the SPRB's authority to include reviewing and approving additional property transactions and would reduce from 100,000 to 50,000 the cost threshold for certain review of certain construction services contracts. I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
And a second? Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Haddad. I just described the bill. Is there any further comment? Representative Mastrofrancesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's no objection, I would like to offer this item to the consent calendar.
Is there objection? Seeing none, this item is added to the consent calendar. Our next item is number 12, House Bill 6829, an act prohibiting electronic book and digital audiobook license agreements or contracts from including certain terms. This is a JFS to the floor of LCO 6310. I will entertain a motion. Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Morin-Bello. This bill would prevent state libraries and other libraries receiving state money from entering into enforceable contracts for certain terms. We heard from the libraries that they have essentially been forced as a result of their mission and insufficient bargaining power into entering certain licensing agreements that disadvantage the public and their mission. And this bill would give them additional bargaining power in those discussions. Is there further comment on this bill? Senator Sampson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this is the big item on this agenda for me. I really don't like this bill at all. Reading through this bill, while certainly each one of us is sympathetic to libraries and want to see them continue as viable institutions going forward, this is not the mechanism to do it. Mr. Chairman, this bill, while I think it's going to run into legal challenges, because I think most of what is in here is already preempted by federal copyright law. Even if it's not, it is a direct affront to our traditional private contract system in this country. The fact of the matter is, if libraries need more funds to be able to purchase private goods, which books and electronic media are, then the state and municipalities that fund libraries ought to come up with more money to do so. The solution is not to somehow extort this private property, intellectual property, from the people that produce it. Some of the most celebrated people in our society, because they are creative and talented authors, to not what's the word I'm looking for? End up benefiting to the degree that they should be because of what they've created. Realize is the word I was looking for, that they weren't not going to realize the benefits of their hard work. This bill, look, just for people at home, it says in section 1, it says, no contract or license agreement between any publisher and any library shall be construed to preclude, limit, or restrict the library. And then it goes on to say, no contract can have a provision that prohibits the library from loaning electronic literary material, including through any interlibrary loan system, which means that that material will go far beyond the one library. Restrict the number of times the library may loan any electronic literary material over the course of a license agreement. Limits the number of electronic library material licenses. Prohibits the library from making copies of the material. Restricts the library from disclosing the terms of the contract. And on and on. These are private contracts, and they are purchase contracts effectively. And more and more, we're witnessing the state of Connecticut interfering with the individual property rights of Connecticut residents. And I would remind my colleagues on this committee that we are representatives of the very people that we are talking about. We are elected by our constituents to protect their rights. I think that is our number one commitment that we make when we take our oath of office, that we're going to protect the rights of our constituents. And if this bill reads as it does, we are effectively violating the right to personal private property, intellectual property of our constituents. And you're also preventing them from being able to make a livelihood, all for the express purpose of simply diminishing the cost to libraries. And that is not a sufficient reason. The larger concern is not just the immediate one, which is the violation of the civil liberties and the rights of the people that are involved in producing media and audio material and writing books, authors, etc., which is bad enough. But the secondary result of this is that people are not going to engage with libraries anymore, and the material will not be available to the public. So if the goal is to keep our libraries vibrant and make sure that they have as much material as possible and that it gets out into the world for people to see, this is going to have the exact opposite effect. This is just a foolhardy bill, Mr. Chairman. I don't agree with the concepts in here. I can't say enough that it's a simple overreach of our state government, interfering in private contracts, violating the notion of property rights. And it will have the exact opposite impact as I think the introducers believe it will have. In fact, I believe it'll have a deleterious effect on the availability of books and media, and it will harm the creators of those things. And to me, that's an injustice. I'll be voting no.
Thank you, Senator. Is there further comment on the bill? Representative Hoxa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start off by acknowledging the fact that there have been instances in the past when government has gotten involved in what would, on its surface seem like a simple two-party transaction between a buyer and a seller of either goods or services. This isn't uncommon. It happens at every level of government. A recent example that I could think of was at the beginning stages of, the COVID-19 pandemic. There were unscrupulous actors out there trying to price gouge and, hoarding vital and necessary resources for the sole purpose of, being able to, resell them for exorbitant, fees and prices and make, very big profits. In those types of situations where you're dealing with something that is an extreme necessity, something that is quite frankly and quite literally a matter of life or death, the role of government at whatever level is something that becomes, necessary to prevent that type of situation from occurring. This is not one of those types of situations. And because it's not, the general Republican philosophy on these types of situations is that the rights of the individual person and the individual business should be protected over the interests of a governmental institution, and arguably even potentially the greater good. Like Senator Sampson said, I don't think anybody in this room is opposed to enriching the resources of libraries anywhere and everywhere. I think we all can agree that libraries have an important role and function. I certainly, before the age, not to dredge up the social media topic again, but before the age of social media and the internet, the libraries were the number one resource for research and information gathering. And, it's extremely vital for children, adults, students, researchers to have access to libraries and for libraries to be abundant in resources. But that does not override the ability for a private individual, a private business it does not override the ability for a private business to engage in a contract with another entity, whether that entity is another private individual or the government itself. And it certainly doesn't override the right for that agreement or for that contract to be honored. Certainly after the duration of the contract has expired, a new negotiation can occur, at which point both parties have a right to make the best case for their interests. And, that may result in the library potentially getting, a better deal than they previously got. It may not result in that, but that concept, that core fundamental, right, for individuals to be able to practice, business freely, is something that's very important and a key, pillar of our society and country at large. So I ask that we just keep that in mind when, voting on this bill. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further comment or question from members of the committee? I would just offer my own brief comment in response to the comments of my good colleagues. While I respect their perspectives, I disagree with them. This bill, in our view, is a response to a situation in which our libraries in our state, which spend state money to provide resources to the public at large for their learning and enrichment and entertainment, and would normally and does normally with physical books get discounts because it is a volume purchaser and does more business, is instead having that mission and mass used against it in a way that disfavors our state dollars. And this bill would not require any particular transaction or any transaction at all. It would not require publishers to offer any particular terms. What it does say is that we are going to provide the libraries as they go into these transactions with additional bargaining power to reach a fair price and fair terms that are more akin to the physical book market, and nevertheless provide a very significant profit to all the individuals who deserve to have their creativity and work compensated. So with that, while I hear and respect the perspectives of my good colleagues, I disagree with them, and I urge all my colleagues to support this bill. And Madam Clerk, when you're ready, you may call the roll.
House Bill 6829, LCO 6310, JFS to the floor. Flexer. Blumenthal,
Yes, Blumenthal's yes.
Slap. Mornbello,
Bello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson is no.
Master Francesco,
Master Francesco votes no.
Burger Gervalo,
Burger Gervalo votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes no.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes no.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola, Representative Labriola, Marks,
Senator Marks votes yes.
McCarthy Vehy,
McCarthy Vehy votes yes.
McCrory, Parker, Rosario,
Rosario votes yes.
Santiago.
Santiago votes yes.
All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next on our agenda, we have item number 13, House Bill 6865, an act concerning campaign finance reforms regarding certain expenditures. This will be a JFS to the floor of LCO number 6105. I will entertain a motion. And a second? Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Haddad. This bill makes several changes to our campaign finance laws. It allows legislative leadership and caucus PACs of the same party to aggregate their maximum amounts and streamline those functions, so long as they report their agreement to do so and report that they're actually doing so in their public reports. It expands the types of campaign events at which organizational expenditures may be made, while also limiting them to exclude any events at which fundraising is the purpose. And it revises certain definitions and allows a more ready reimbursement of PAC and expenses. Is there further comment on this bill? Representative Master Francesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, if I understand this bill correctly, is basically you have a PAC, a couple of PACs. They're basically kind of pulling their resources together. Am I understanding that correctly? For the purpose of expenditure, so they don't max out?
So this would apply only to legislative leadership and caucus PACs. And it would be essentially what you said, multiple PACs, instead of distinctly spending their aggregate amounts, which would create additional bookkeeping and functions and reporting functions individually on the PACs. This would allow them increased flexibility to essentially pool amounts subject to those aggregate amounts and thereby ease those bookkeeping and reporting requirements, albeit they would still be required, first of all, to report what they were doing, but also to report that they had so aggregated those amounts to you.
Thank you. To me, it seems like it's a maneuver, I guess. To maybe not have to do as much reporting, as much paperwork to maximize the amount of money maybe one PAC has over another, which I find concerning. I guess the question is simple, just what is the purpose of it? Are they struggling to do the reporting? Are they trying to maximize the use of their funding for campaigns through you?
To you, Representative, I believe the purpose of this bill is to ensure that the function is streamlined. All the reporting, excuse me, all the actions would still be reported, but it would streamline their ability to support a candidate or a cause within our campaign finance laws without having to do so distinctly. They would be able to pool funds so long as they are reporting exactly what they're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I get that. So again, I think this is just a maneuvering of the system to try to maximize, I guess, your funding, I would say. And I understand what you're trying to say with streamlining, but it's a maneuver to try to get around something that perhaps should be done a different way. So I'm going to oppose this bill today, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Is there further comment on this bill? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
House Bill 6865, LCO 6105, JFS to the floor. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slap, Morinbello,
Morinbello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson is no.
Master Francesco,
Master Francesco votes no.
Burger Gervalo,
Burger Gervalo votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes no.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes no.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola,
Representative Labriola votes no.
Marks, Senator Marks, McCarthy Vehy,
McCarthy Vehy votes yes.
McCrory, Parker, Rosario,
Representative Rosario votes yes.
Santiago.
Santiago votes yes.
All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We are on to item number 14, House Bill 6904, an act concerning campaign finance. This is the JFS to the floor, LCO number 6374. I will entertain a motion. Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Morinbello. This bill would increase from $10,000 to $15,000, the maximum amount allowed to be contributed to a party's state central committee by an individual. It would also revise and clarify the definition of expenditure so as not to include certain internet solicitations for contributions. And it would also correct a situation we've observed where the State Elections Enforcement Commission under current law would have to currently dismiss a complaint after 1 year, regardless of the merits and regardless of the conclusion of the investigation and proceeding. Is there any further comment on this bill? Representative Master Francesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's no objections, I would offer this item for the consent calendar.
Is there any objection? Seeing none, this item will be added to the consent calendar. Next up, we have item number 15. House Bill 6908, an act concerning elections, presidential preference primaries, and deadlines for minor party nominations. This is the JFS to the floor, LCO number 6371. This bill would move from April 30th to April 2nd, our presidential preference primary. Oh, I did not ask for a motion. I will entertain a motion. Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Khanna. Thank you for the reminder. This bill would move the date for the presidential primary here in Connecticut up from the end of April to the beginning of April, giving us more of a say in choosing the presidential nominations. Additionally, it would move up the deadline for minor parties to certify their nominations while so that they accord more with the major party deadlines, while also allowing them to accommodate any challenge or other proceeding having to do with a primary or nomination of a major party. Is there any further comment? Representative Master-Francesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's no objection, I would like to offer this item to the consent calendar.
Seeing no objection, this item is added to the consent calendar. Next up, we have item number 16, House Bill 6912, an act concerning non-disclosure of information regarding and conduct towards certain election workers. This is the JFS to the floor, LCO 6365. I will entertain a motion. Moved by Senator Flexer, seconded by Representative Khanna. This bill would allow a procedure by which certain election officials could apply to have their home address information not shared for 90 days after an election. They could apply for an extension if they can demonstrate good cause why their information should not be shared. Additionally, it would increase the penalty for intimidating, harassing, or threatening an election official. Is there any further comment on this bill? Representative Master-Francesco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, another expansion of exemptions to the Freedom of Information, this time really for municipal election workers, town clerk, register of voters, deputy registered voter audit officials. Again, I do not agree with this. We've had so many bills between this year and last year for exemptions. Before you know it, our Freedom of Information Commission won't exist because everything will be exempt. So, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend, I am going to oppose this bill and would ask my colleagues to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Are there further comments on this bill? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
House Bill 6912, LCO 6365, JFS to the floor. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slap,
Senator Slab votes yes.
Morinbello,
Morinbello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson is no.
Master-Francesco,
Master-Francesco votes no.
Burger Gervalo,
Burger Giraldo votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes no.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes no.
Khanna,
Khanna votes yes.
Labriola,
Representative Labriola votes no.
Marks, Senator Marks, McCarthy Vehi,
McCarthy Vehi votes yes.
I need your camera on, Representative, please.
Madam Clerk, can you see me?
There you go. Thank you.
McCarthy Vehi votes yes.
Thank you. McCrory, Parker, Rosario, Santiago. All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Seeing no further items on our agenda, when you're prepared, would you please call the consent calendar?
Consent calendar includes Senate Bill 1155, LCO 6284, House Bill 6827, House Bill 6904, LCO 6374, House Bill 6908, LCO 6371. Flexer,
Senator Flexer votes yes.
Blumenthal,
Blumenthal votes yes.
Slap,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
Morinbello,
Bello votes yes.
Sampson,
Sampson is yes.
Master Francesco,
Master Francesco votes yes.
Burger Gervalo,
Bertha Giovanni votes yes.
Bronco,
Bronco votes yes.
Carpino, Haddad,
Haddad votes yes.
Hoxa,
Hoxa votes yes.
Kana,
Kana votes yes.
Labriola,
Representative Labriola votes yes.
Marks, McCarthy Vehi,
McCarthy Vehi votes yes.
McCrory, Parker, Rosario,
Rosario votes yes.
Santiago. All set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, we will recess until 5:30 p.m. The votes will be open until then. Thank you very much to everyone for your work today.
Senator Slap. Your hand.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, there's. Why is going? Just give me a moment, please. I will look over what votes you missed.
Yeah, no problem. I think I missed everything except the last two.
Okay, Senate Bill 1153,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
Senate Bill 1157,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
Senate Bill 1190,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
Senate Bill 1191,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
Senate Bill 1221,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
Senate Bill 1223,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
House Bill 6077,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
House Bill 6401,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
House Bill 6829,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
House Bill 6865,
Senator Slatt votes yes.
You are all set, Senator.
Thanks so much. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Valentina, can I go next? I only missed the last three.
Representative Santiago, I am going by the order of hands raised.
Oh, my God.
Representative Rosario. Give me a moment, please, so I can look through to see what you missed.
Sure, thank you.
Senate Bill 1153.
Rep. Rosario votes yes.
Senate Bill 1157.
Rep. Rosario votes yes.
Senate Bill 1190.
Rep. Rosario votes yes.
House Bill 6912.
Rep. Rosario votes yes.
Okay, you are all set, Representative.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too, thank you. Representative Labriola.
Yes. I'm okay if you want to do Representative Santiago and then come back to me. I'm okay with that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I
There are
only missed the
multiple-
last two.
There are multiple, it's two that are ahead of Representative Santiago.
Well, I don't mind waiting.
Okay, Representative Carpino.
She can go ahead of me.
Okay.
Thank
Representative,
you, guys. I mean, I was here for the whole thing and my phone shut off. Not my phone. I lost the connection with CTN.
you missed the vote on the consent calendar, which includes 11,
Right.
68, Representative, would you allow me to say the bill numbers, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It includes Senate Bill 1155, House Bill
Santiago.
6827, House Bill
Santiago votes yes.
6904, and House Bill 6908.
Santiago votes yes.
House Bill 6912.
Santiago votes yes.
You are all set. Representative Labriola.
I'm ready to go.
Senate Bill 1153.
Labriola votes no.
Senate Bill 57.
Labriola votes no.
Senate Bill 1190.
Labriola votes no.
Senate Bill 1191.
Labriola votes yes.
Senate Bill 1221.
Labriola votes no.
Senate Bill 1223.
Labriola votes no.
House Resolution 8.
Labriola votes no.
House Bill 6077.
Labriola votes no.
House Bill 6401.
Labriola votes no.
House Bill 6829.
Labriola votes yes. Think I'm caught up.
Yes, you are. You're all set, Representative.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Representative Carpino.
Hello there, ma'am.
Hi. Senate Bill 1153.
Representative Carpino votes no.
Senate Bill 1157.
Representative Carpino votes no.
Senate Bill 1190.
Representative Carpino also votes no.
Senate Bill 1191.
Representative Carpino votes yes.
Senate Bill 1221.
Representative Carpino votes yes.
Senate Bill 1223.
Representative Carpino votes yes.
House Resolution 8.
Representative Carpino votes yes.
House Bill 6077.
Representative Carpino votes yes.
House Bill 6401.
Representative Carpino votes no.
House Bill 6829.
Representative Carpino votes yes.
House Bill 6865.
Representative Carpino votes no.
House Bill 6912.
Representative Carpino votes no.
And the consent calendar, which includes bill numbers 1155, 6827, 6904, and 6908.
Representative Carpino votes yes.
You are all set, Representative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Hi, Representative Parker. Hi, Representative.
Hi, Valentina.
Hi. Um, so you missed all of them, so I'm just gonna start at the beginning.
Okay.
Senate Bill 1153.
Yes.
Senate Bill 1157.
Yes.
Senate Bill 1190.
Yes.
Senate Bill 1191.
Yes.
Senate Bill 1221.
Yes.
Senate 1223.
Yes.
House Resolution 8.
Yes.
House Bill 6077.
Yes.
House Bill 6401.
Yes.
House Bill 6829.
Yes.
House Bill 6865.
Yes.
House Bill 6912.
Yes.
Consent calendar. It includes bills 1155, 6827, 6904, and 6908.
Yes.
You are all set, Representative.
Thanks very much, Valentina. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, can I vote?
Hi, Senator.
Hi. Hey, I think I only missed a couple.
Yeah. Let me just go through them really quickly. House Bill 6077.
Everybody voted yes. My side voted yes. Yes, yes, yes.
House Bill 6401.
Yes.
House Bill 6865.
Marks votes yes.
House Bill 6912.
Marks votes yes.
And the consent calendar, which includes 1155, 6827, 6904, and 6908.
Marks votes yes.
And you are all set, Senator.
Okay, appreciate all your work. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.